Toastmaster. Not surprisingly, that random member had no conflicting engagements on his calendar. He agreed to visit us tonight once we assured him that there would be snacks.
Okay.
Dennis Dawson is a distinguished Toastmaster and past district governor. We know this because he's always stopping strangers on the street just to tell them. Lacking vital social skills, most of Dennis's daily conversations involve insulting and degrading those around him. He hates people because, as he says, people are always doing stuff. In some situations, though, a lack of social compass can serve to promote the development of comedy. If we set aside our personal distaste for Dennis, as so many have done before us, it's possible that there are still some synapses firing behind those bushy white eyebrows, and that he might actually have something to say. Please try to stay awake through Dennis's presentation, The Art of the Roast.
I hate you already.
If I had a nickel.
You might have enough to buy a cup of coffee.
Or tea.
It's okay, I didn't have 30 minutes of material anyway.
Good.
Thank you, Tanya. You know, I first met Tanya where I meet all Toastmasters at the Pier 39 restaurant in Alameda. I was in the parking lot. She emerged from a chartreuse Volkswagen Beetle, came bounding up to me and said she liked something I said. Very nice. Here was this very pretty woman, dressed in a variety of colors, feathers, faux fur. I knew I'd seen her before. At first I thought it was in a Fellini film. Then I realized it was just an LSD flashback I'd had earlier that day. The 60s were kind to both of us. She was with a more mature, conservatively dressed woman whom I later learned was her daughter. Apparently Tabitha was comfortable with her role as chaperone, though it clearly took monumental effort to keep her in check. Tanya volunteered to help out on some of my early Toastmasters projects. And I quickly discovered she's one of the best kept secrets in the district. Now when I say jump, I expect people to say how high. When I told Tanya to jump, she had already landed. And she brought a tray of cookies. This was destined to be a beautiful friendship. Tanya has a magical, disarming combination of giggling competence. She's a delightful ditz in a conversation, but hidden behind that facade is a calculating schoolmarm thinking 5 steps ahead of you. Engaging in a battle of wits with Tanya is like losing a game of chess to a kitten. And she purrs like the queen of cougars, bats her glowing eyes at you, and you don't know what to think. But that's okay. She does your thinking for you. It's no wonder she's a whiz on constant contact. Everyone wants to stay in touch with her. When I used to send her announcements for all district members, I might start it off with, "Oh, all of you can go to hell." When the draft came back, it would say, "Dennis wants you to reach into the depths of your creativity and strive to succeed with unorthodox, irreverent activities." She's like a spin doctor dressed in a sexy nurse outfit. So when she asked if I would do an easy little favor and come to a tiny little 35-minute seminar, she knew, like any man, she had me wrapped around her little rotisserie, ready to spin and drip over hot coals, just amazing. This is what she calls a typical Friday night. It's the same bewitching charm she's used on all district governors, charm that gets Tyree Johnson to base the Outstanding Achievement Award on her daytimer, Ashley Harkness to chase her around like a paparazzo, Gary Long says she's the perfect woman, Jim Doyle dances in front of her apartment singing, "On the street where you live." She leaves Craig Harrison speechless. When she's not charming baristas at the local Starbucks or running District 57 behind the scenes, Tanya is single-handedly keeping the University of California system operating at peak efficiency. All of this while being raised by a single daughter. I have nothing but praise for her wit, grace, and quiet competence. The fact that she's the sort of eye candy that makes Willy Wonka drool is incidental. Truth is, district leadership is tough. Most of the time when you ask for help, you end up helping out your helpers.
Right.
Tanya is one of the few people who made my stint as district governor easier. She is a brilliant asset to any organization, and you were lucky to have her as your president. Tanya, I'm sure everyone joins me in thanking you for your service, your support, and your intriguing style of dress. We salute you.
Hey.
Them's a roast. I specifically refuse to be roasted at the end of my district governor year. Now, why is that? Because I have no sense of humor? Possibly. Because I was frightened? I should have been. Because I don't like roasting? Yeah, I like roasting. Got some reasons. First off, I had seen the roasts the 2 previous years, and I knew what was coming. I don't mind being roasted, but it's got to be funny. Roasts are not a series of mean-spirited jokes. The humor should come from exaggeration of the good qualities of the guest of honor. At Gary Long's roast, there was a skit in which I was portrayed as Jabba the Hutt. There was no joke. That was the punchline. I normally enjoy being compared to a giant slug who is after nothing but Carrie Fisher's body. But only the second half of that is really true. This is going to come as a shock to you, but I am not universally loved. Love is a key ingredient to a roast. The people in the room have to like you if they're going to roast you. Otherwise, it can create bad feelings that are going to last 2 years, because it's Toastmasters memory length. And in fact, I did have a roast. I invited 15 of my favorite people to a pizza parlor, and they tore me a new one. And I loved it. So how do you go about coming up with a roast? I have these wonderful handouts, which I ran off at enormous personal expense this morning. You can follow along. They're kind of 3 ingredients to a perfect blend. The first thing you have to do is pick the right victim. You've got to roast somebody who's got a sense of humor. If they can't take a little bit of criticism, they're not going to enjoy it. Check with your victim first. Be sure they're cool with being the target. Most people are going to be fine with it, but they should have a say in it. And remind them that they have to do the rebuttal at the end. So they should be cool with speaking too. Now, you want to pick the right MC. Somebody who's fast on their feet. Someone who's going to step in when the speakers bomb. I was the MC for a roast for an honoree who was a devout Catholic. I'm not going to mention, because the person is actually in the room. David, hi. One of the speakers, I just mentioned Dave randomly, mentioned priests molesting little boys, which didn't go over well with the honoree, or the 2 nuns, or the clergyman in the room. When I got up, I shook his hand. I'm not singling you out, David. Everybody here has embarrassed themselves by talking about molestation in front of Catholics. And so when I thanked David, I told him, thank goodness you're the only person who is more offensive than I am this evening. And as that kind of took the focus off of him, got everybody laughing, everything's okay. So the right MC can kind of smooth things over and get you past any rough parts. You also have to pick the right speakers. Surprisingly, you want people who are funny, with a track record for being funny. Toastmasters is a place for you to stretch, try new things, The time to try new things is not in front of 200 people who paid good money to get up there and listen to the roasting speakers. If you get somebody up there who's just plain awful, everyone's going to walk out blaming you, the organizer, so you don't want that. Rehearsal. What a crazy idea. Why would you want to have a rehearsal before a roast? Well, for starters, you want to be sure that everybody's got different jokes. Otherwise, somebody's going to get up there and repeat what the guy said just before him. You also want a chance to look at the roasters before the actual event. Because if they really stink, you can either help them a great deal, or you can, oh, that's right, we actually promised someone who was good. Oh no. But you would send that message to Tanya and have her, which is what I always did.
Yeah.
Okay. Also, surprise is not an essential element of the roast. It's perfectly okay to send it in advance to the roastee and say, any of this hurt before you get there. Let them give you some feedback. They might even give you some better lines. There's no reason they have to hide it from the person you're actually going to rip on. Okay, so you've decided that you're going to have this wonderful roast, and lucky you've been chosen to write a speech. So what are you going to do? You're going to start by brainstorming a little bit. Don't just sit down and start writing the speech. I don't recommend it anyway. But if you know 2 or 3 weeks ahead of time, I know that the way I personally work, I wake up early, and before I leap out of bed, I think about my next Toastmasters speech. Or in this weekend, 3 different Toastmasters presentations that I'm going to do. And I just kind of mull on it. If something strikes me as really important, I'll jot it down in my little like moleskin book. I always have it handy in my back pocket. You don't want to smell it. And I just jot down ideas. And then after I have had some things sort of percolate to the top, then I'm going to start to write out there. As you come up with ideas, think about personality quirks about the person, but it doesn't have to be all their negative aspects. In fact, did I say anything negative about my friend Tanya? No, all I did was exaggerate all of her good points and take them to the level of absurd. There's no reason that you have to start talking about negative aspects of the person that you're working with. And be sure that they're universal topics. Don't get into a lot of detail about the way Tanya loves to collect watch springs. Yeah, if you knew that Tanya had a watch spring collection, you would really think it was funny. The way she collects them and she looks at them. Some of them are really springy. Yeah, it's got to be something that everybody can relate to. Now, we want to stay away from really hurtful comments. Everybody's got a different level to what they can take. So it's perfectly okay to send it in advance, ask if this is a little too harsh. Now, Dave Orris is losing his eyesight. I personally would not say anything about Dave's vision for the future. Okay. However, and I thought of this before the toasting contest last night, Eddie went there. Eddie checked with Dave first and made sure that it was okay with him. Still, you have to be a little careful because it may not be okay with everybody in the room. So a lot of times people are going to be really gracious. Dave is the most gracious guy in the world. They're going to say, yeah, it's okay with me, but other people will be offended. So you have to be careful of things like, here's Tanya. Now, she obviously has got an ample bosom. Okay, but I'm not going to touch her breasts. That was my big laugh line of the night. Did I clear that with you in advance?
Yes, you did.
One time I was a guest speaker at a club. It was a bunch of college students. Great club. Really loved the club. And they had a Toastmaster that day who thought it was amusing that I was wearing a green shirt and wearing a red tie. That's when I had my long beard. And I was going around trying to look like Santa Claus. Okay? If I looked like Justin Bieber, I'd wear bangs. But I don't. I look like Santa. I go with it. So he gets up there, hey, there's Santa Claus in the room. Ha! 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 Santa Claus. And he called me Santa Claus at least 28 times. It was around the 26th that got a little old at that point. Again, no joke. Just, that was the punchline, is I look like Santa Claus. And I try to look like Santa Claus. I love it when children tell me I look like Santa Claus. And I was so pissed off at that guy by the end of the meeting that I just walked out at the end. So be careful when you're doing this kind of stuff. Now, on the other hand, self-deprecation is wonderful. You may have noticed when I was talking about all of her wonderful traits, it's because she was making up for all of my deficits. Okay. The more self-deprecation you can load into a roast, the better off you're going to be. Watch out for the trap of the Hallmark jokes. Do you have books like this? Humorous quotations? Okay, any book that's got humorous in the title, it's not funny. Otherwise they'd say funny jokes, right? Yeah, no, they're humorous. It's humorous. Oh, that's delightful. See, I have a copy of The Portable Curmudgeon, which I read like a Bible. I've got The Snark Handbook, which I love. These are terrific books, but you know what? When I'm writing a speech, I never use them as reference material. I don't go look under Tanya to find a Tanya joke. The reason I call them Hallmark jokes, sometimes you're going to find that card that says exactly what you want to tell your true love. Most of the time, you're going to pick the one that has a picture of Snoopy and Woodstock and get out of there. And that's the way these books work. You're going to pick one, that's close, that's Snoopy, Woodstock, that's cute, everybody will look, that's funny, and you take it and you go with it. The truth is, if you are familiar enough with somebody to really do a good roast, you don't need a joke book. You should be able to generate the material original. And if you can't generate original material, it's probably not a good idea for you to be doing that roast. Okay. It is helpful, however, to read these books. I have these books. I read them all the time. I read them over and over again. Now, you're probably familiar with this. Freud says there's 7 kinds of jokes, and that's all there is. Absurdity, illusion, I'm going to read. Analogy, exaggeration, faulty reasoning, play on words, or reproach. Every joke comes down to one of those 7 types. So if you read joke books a lot, and when I was a kid, I read joke books all the time. That's all I ever read. You read a lot of jokes. Over time, you understand the pattern of the joke. You get the feel for the joke. You don't have to memorize jokes. I haven't told memorized jokes in about 20 years. But I'm funny because I know how jokes work. And that's really what you want to go for. So these things are not great for reference, but they're great for learning the patterns of jokes so that you can write original material. Remember when you're doing your roast that there are multiple targets in the room? I'm not going to stick to Tanya when I'm picking on her. Tyree's right there, and my God, how could you help but make fun of him? And Jim was here, and I was hoping that Ashley would show up, but I missed him. So you'll see on the Friars Club roasts that they actually hit everybody on the dais before they ever touch the guest of honor. And you should take advantage of that when you're doing a roast. Get everybody you know who's going to be there because you'll have a lot more material, and it's actually going to take some of the pressure off before talking. There are alternative formats for doing roasts, aren't there? You could do a funny song, or you could write a new poem. This could be really, really effective, or really, really excruciating. It all depends. If you're going to do a song, remember that you have to be good at what you do. If you're playing the guitar, you've got to be good at it. If you're going to play the keyboard in front of a group of people, you've got to be good at it. Why? Because nobody wants to hear people play bad. It's not funny. There you are. If you're going to write a new poem, a lot of people will write a poem by taking one of those time-honored classics. 'Twas the night before. Why did you groan? Because it's been done to death? Yes! Some people say that I'll just do something in the style of Dr. Seuss. Dr. Seuss was a genius. If you're a genius, you can write a Dr. Seuss poem. Otherwise, keep your hands off. Brevity with soul. keep it short. If you talk too long, you're likely to be rambling. You'll lose your audience. How long is a typical Toastmaster speech? Do you think they pulled that number out of thin air? That's the right amount of time to be up here, especially if you're going to be talking about people. And you always want to end on a good note, on a positive note. Now, I always keep my roasts positive all the way through. That's just the way I am. In a roast, in my daily life, I'm nasty as hell. But at the very end, you want to end with sincere appreciation and be sure that you let everyone in the room know how much you love this person to whom you have just been so mean. Now, I'm going to say something that will make some of you inhale with one of those gasps, like that. Are you ready? Write it out. No, thank you, sir. I know that some of you people think, no, you're going to get up there and wing it. It'll be okay. It's funny. Things just come to me. And sometimes they do, and you're absolutely brilliant. Have you ever seen somebody get up there and wing it and just absolutely die? Yeah, many of the people in this club have probably done it. That's okay. You can't edit what you're going to say until it's written down. And that's the key. The difference between my writing, and I am a professional writer of computer manuals. Nobody reads them. It's the coolest job. Pay a lot of money and here, read this. No problem. But after I write something down, you know what I do? I edit it 7 times. That's the difference between my writing and anybody else's writing. When you get the jokes down there, write it down, set it aside for 3 days so that your brain is not in the, I know what's going on mode. You want your brain to kind of forget, then you can look at it with fresh eyes and you do the, as you're looking through and you realize that was a really bad joke. You can catch it yourself if you write it in advance and let it steep for a little bit before you actually sit down with it. Then you've written it out. What are you going to do next? Try it out. Try it on an audience. Try it on some friends. Try it on some people who know the person. Because a lot of times your friends are going to say, Dennis, you stink. But they'll tell you in that way that lets them know that you're going to be the subject of the next roast. So it's okay. Prop comedy. Props never work. No, props are actually a great idea. Any souvenirs you have from your time together, maybe you've got a stupid little pill with props. You can give them a silly crown or hat to wear, or you can do it yourself. You can do a caricature of the honoree. It's something that can go into the programs. You can use it for stand-ups and things along that line. A lot of visual things you can do to add interest. Okay? So those are all my thoughts about how you do a roast in a nutshell. At this point, how much time do we have? We got a timer.
You are 21 minutes and 58 seconds.
Perfect. We got time to try creating our own. Turn the page over. Let's kind of get started with a little roast here. With the time we have remaining before I start answering the questions. I know you have thousands. There we go. So let me ask the club, and you guess, you shut up. Let me just ask the club, would you ask the guests not to participate in this one part?
Yes, please don't participate in this one part.
Thank you, Tony. You see how she puts it? God love her, she's brilliant. We need to pick somebody in the Laugh Lovers Club who is loved. Who's loved?
Chris Pond.
Chris Pond's loved. Does everybody agree that we love Chris Pond? We love Chris Pond.
We love D-Wolf. We love Waylon instead.
What do we love about Chris Pond?
His shirt.
His shirt.
His fashion sense. What else do we love? I'm sorry. What else do we love about Chris Pond?
Planning skills?
Financial planning skills. Let's see, money sense. I'm starting to see a pattern here.
Self-deprecate.
Self-deprecation. Are you self-deprecating, Chris?
Maybe, sometimes.
Good leader.
Punctual.
Somebody said selfless.
Good leader. See how everybody actually does on this? Good leader,
Great
Say
taste in flowers.
selfless.
time
Right.
sense.
His romantic instincts.
His romantic quests.
I got some stories.
His public romantic quests.
Mischief.
Mischief.
Since 2009.
His old haircut.
Add it to them.
Yeah, if there's anything that pisses me off, it's an Asian guy with a big head of hair, and he said, "I better cut this off and throw it away." I've got one row of soldiers here. Shame on you.
I can go back to the barber shop and get it. Stupid haircut.
There we go.
That's positive.
Oh, I'm sorry. Penn has a mind of its own.
He's a UC Berkeley graduate.
UC Berkeley.
Yay.
Isn't that
Cow.
Bears, right?
There's that.
Golden
Bear.
grad.
Bears.
Bears.
Golden Bear.
Okay.
You talked about looking for a roommate one time. One of his
He
speeches.
talked about looking for a room. So it seems that we've gotten to the end of the list.